Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Bennett Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, listeners. Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. We're doing a quick, random, on the spur of the moment podcast. I'm joined by two people. I got my son in the back. Hello. And I got my dad right here.
Hello.
And we're just, we just got a suit. And I thought, sometimes my best episodes are ones that are not super rehearsed. They're on the moment, thinking about topics that come top of mind. And so I got my dad here. He is a retired colonel, served 30 years, a leader, and someone I look up to, and someone that my son looks up to. And we randomly had a story yesterday. It's going to come full circle why I felt like we wanted to do it right now while it's top of mind. So for the listeners, before I do this story, Dad, tell them a little bit who you are. I think, if they listen to other episodes, they'll know who you are because you've been a guest before, but tell them a little bit who you are first before I tell a story.
Philip Linwood Wilkerson Jr. My father was Philip Linwood Wilkerson Sr. My grandfather was Philip Wilkerson. And your host is Philip Linwood Wilkerson III. So clearly, Philip is a prominent name in the Wilkerson family. We are blessed to have now the third generation, living generation with Bennett. But he carries the Wilkerson name. So
and Miles,
and Miles, who is not here, carries the Wilkerson name. I'm originally born in Newport News, Virginia. My growing years spent in Hampton, went to Hampton High School. From Hampton High School, I went to the Virginia Military Institute, class of 1972. Probably Philip wants me to mention that class of 72, was the first class in the 152-year history of VMI of having African Americans.
Yep.
I won't say men of color because they had some Chinese and folks and stuff like that, but they didn't have any of us.
They had a Chinese student before a black student?
They had Korean, Chinese, especially from the Republic, when the Republic of China, but that's a completely different story.
It's an interesting story, but different story.
From there, I went to VMI because I wanted to be a Marine.
Yep.
That didn't work out because I tried my hand at football at the college level and got hurt. Did not pass the commissioning physical for the United States Marine. I say tongue-in-cheek, the Marines were looking for a few good men, and I just happened to be not one of them. Mm-hmm. Ended up getting a waiver, went into the service, spent 30 years, 3 days, and 13 hours. I had an opportunity to serve some of the finest units, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Division, Infantry Divisions in the 82nd, which was very special. Spent 5 years at Fort Bragg, where I met my bride of now 44 years there at Fort Bragg. That's kind of served on all continents. Spent 2 tours in Korea, tour in Germany, went to Desert Storm, Desert Shield. Interesting point, I was a 2nd lieutenant at Fort Riley, Kansas, and then had the honor to come back to the 1st Infantry Division and command a battalion in the 1st Infantry Division. So I took a great deal of pride in that. You say it's not going to be big red one.
But I think that's the good segue, because of all places you talked about Fort Riley. And so this is where the impetus of this conversation that we're going to have today. And, I think I'm going to call it leadership lessons from my dad, because it's just one of many. We're hungry. We're going to go out to eat. So I'm not going to hold y'all too long. But this is the quick version of that story. So yesterday, my wife and I went to a restaurant in Clifton called Trummers. Without my son. He wants you to know that. And while we were there, we were served by a gentleman who was His name was Tony. And Tony, we were talking, he's like, my grandmother, is Hawaiian, because at Tremors it's throughout the summer, it's luau summer, right? Like they have a Hawaiian theme, a luau with, Hawaiian, Polynesian style food, whatever. And so Tony was talking, me, I talk to anybody, and asking where he's from and all this stuff. And I just asked a random question like, from Hawaii, how did you end up here in Virginia? And lo and behold, Tony says, I'm a military brat. And I said, you know what, that's crazy. Me too. And I said, where other places did you live? And he said, I lived in Fort Riley. And I said, me too. And then I said, okay, who's your dad? And he said, might sound crazy, I go by Tony and my dad's name is Tony. I said, that's crazy, my dad is Phil and I go by Phil. And come to find out, his dad, Tony Marino, worked with my dad.
He was the 2nd Brigade commander in the 1st Infantry Division when I was the commander of 401 Aviation.
And this is where I think we're just going to touch upon leadership. Because Dad, what is one lesson? I know one lesson that you shared with me is that very particular, our names matter. I think you even started with that, Philip. And what that really reiterated, that story reiterated to me is that no matter what you do, no matter your title, colonel, he's talking about his dad was a colonel at that time, you're lieutenant colonel, it didn't matter. The main thing is the only thing that we have when we die or we leave this earth is our name. And that carries weight in rooms that you're in or not in. And I think also that part of the name is timeless, right? Like that's, I don't know how many years, like over 30 years later, Tony Marino, that meant something to you. And you had a positive relationship with Tony.
I did.
And vice versa. And the next generation has a positive, like I hit it off with his son. He was like, oh, my dad. And it could have been a totally different story if he was like, Philip Wilkerson, I can't stand that guy. That could have been a generational thing. So I want you to talk about a little bit about, one, what does leadership mean to you? And two, in that part of leadership, how important is leaving a legacy where the name means something?
Well, leadership is such a broad topic. What I would like to share is personal experience and the application of leadership traits. One of the traits of leadership is servitude. A lot of people don't understand that. They misscrew that. But when you are a leader, you in essence are serving those you lead. Now that doesn't mean that they are necessarily subservient or you are subservient to them. It means you have their well-being, you have their welfare, you have their best interests in heart. Like we like to say, teamwork makes the dream work. So, and those you lead can tell if you are self-centered, if you are focusing on just embedding your position. One of the traditions we have in the military is that, especially when we are in field conditions, officers eat last. Now, you can say, well, what importance is that? You should have enough food. That's not the point. The point is you want your soldiers to know that you care about their welfare before you care about yourself. That's kind of all it would say. Now, a lot of people don't like for me to go this direction, but I did a paper when I was in grad school on assertive leaders, and the person I focused on was Jesus. And people say, oh, here he goes, he's bringing in religion. Yeah. But if you think about the concept of a Jesus served the people. He did miracles. He got, the blind man see. It wasn't about him. It was about the people that he was serving or leading. And as far as the name is concerned, that comes from, I don't know, family pride. I mean, my father, I missed him terribly. I admired him. He taught me some very valuable life lessons. And as silly as it sounds, carrying the name that he carried meant a lot to me, and you can say gave me a goal to stand up for. I did not want to say, and matter of fact, I tell, Philip has a sister. I tell them all, they are my legacy. When people look at them, they're going to say either I did a good job or I did a good job. Did I put them in the best positions so they can be successful? That doesn't matter about what success I have. What do those that you want to lead, what kind of success do they have? That should be one of your primary focus from my perspective. Now, like I said, leadership has so many different avenues to go down, but if I can press that one point, it's not about the leader, it's about those who are led. And the leader that understands that, to me, is a heads up on being a good leader.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the thoughts I thought about, and it kind of comes to mind because I know we had this paradoxical thing, right? Like, we always get this notion, about self-care to help others, right? So I always say, like, put on your oxygen mask before you put on someone else's. But then conversely, I totally agree with what you're saying too. Like, but then if you're a selfless leader, you got to make sure that, your team eats first, right? And so can you talk about that? Because I think there is a balance, though. Like, you still got to take care of yourself to give your best to the others, but at the same time, you're thinking about others. So how can you navigate both of those thoughts? They're both like, like when if you did a self-help book, we got like 2 different self-help books, right? They're telling you to do, but how can you I think you can do both.
Okay, it's interesting you should bring that point up. I would ask you to consider this. All of us have leaders. All of us are led. So if you are taking care of those you lead, the people who are your leaders are taking care of you. So they ensure that you do the things you need to do to be successful, so you can take care of others. If that makes any sense. I was very fortunate when I was in the service because I thought that the officers appointed over me were good leaders. So they made sure that I did what I needed to do to be functional at my whatever job I had. Another thing we used to emphasize, at least in the units that I served in, you always want to work yourself out of a job. Now, what does that mean? That means you want to train your subordinates so they, in fact, can do your job. Now, you said, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Yes, it does. Because in the units I served, we were in reconnaissance. There's multiple times where the leader is absent. Absent because of health, absent because you got shot down, absent because you're dead. There's a lot of reasons to be absent. You don't want the unit just to fall apart because you're not there. Now, you say, well, it's the same thing about my leader. When I was a battalion commander, I had brigade commander that insisted that I could eventually do his job. So if something happens to him, the brigade just won't fall apart and say, oh, Colonel so-and-so is dead now, what are we going to do? No. Yeah. The leader's responsibility is to, in fact, prepare those he leads to actually do his job. I hate to go back to my example again. Jesus. What did Jesus do with the disciples?
He taught them and taught them how to be able to prophesize to others. So he's like, basically what you're saying, I'm not going to be here forever, so that when I'm gone, you can spread my word.
There you go.
And then I think this is very timely because they always say leaders develop leaders, and it's removing ego and pouring up people. But also, I think it talks about that transition stuff. Is that like a true leader? Like I'm in a servant leader. I'm an alumni chapter president, but my term is going to end. And so my main goal this year is to think about transferable leadership. Like, if there's going to be the president next year, I should have someone that feels confident to do the things and keep it going. And so I think you always think about that, like next generation or next person. But I think a lot of people are also scared about that because they want to hold on to it because they always think someone's going to take their job. So you got to let go of ego to do that.
Also think about, what's the purpose of a father? To prepare his son to be a good man.
And if he becomes a father, he becomes a good father. He might not be a father, but just a good person.
He becomes a good person. He is prepared, though. Yeah. You have done everything you can to prepare him, or her in cases, to take your spot. Because it's not about, that's the whole point. It's not about you.
It's a cycle, and it's a natural cycle.
Right. It's not about you.
And this happens.
And when people get that out of their head, things just run smooth because the people that you lead see that you have confidence in them because you have taken the time to train them, to provide the materials that they need to be successful. Coaches do the same thing with players.
Because coaches are like, I'm not playing. Like they had that mindset. Like I have to make sure that they do their job.
They should. Good coaches put players in positions where they can succeed.
Yeah. Well, this is good. We're about to get something to eat, But that's we're not going to talk. It was like we were not going to talk forever. But this. Yeah, finally, he's hungry. Bennett's hungry. So this is the last question, and I think you asked Bennett this, and maybe Bennett can answer too.
Yep.
Is what is one leader that you aspire, that you are inspired by, one leader, and why? And so we're gonna have Bennett answer that too, but also have you answer it. Do you want Bennett to answer first, or you?
Let me answer this so Bennett can collect his thoughts, because I've already thought about it, because I was telling you, matter of fact, I was a little bit embarrassed because I was taking too much time when you were with Maggie. I was watching a documentary on Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the only president to serve 4 terms, even though he didn't complete his 4th term. He died in office. But he led this country through basically 12 of the most difficult years, World War II, that this country faced. The man had polio. Mm-hmm. It took him an hour to dress. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't about him. When he got on the radio, because the TV wasn't a big deal back in the 30s, when he got on the radio, he exuded confidence. Yeah. The man was in pain. It almost brings tears. And what I was trying to share with you yesterday is, when God selects someone to represent him, he doesn't always pick the strongest. He don't pick the baddest guy on the block. Look at David. David was the youngest of the brothers and the smallest. But that's the guy who defeated Goliath.
Yeah.
So my point is, and you brought this up, we all have something to offer. Mm-hmm. Another president most people don't realize is Thomas Jefferson. He had a speech impediment. How many people, if you just pick a guy off the street and say, name a president, knows Thomas Jefferson? So, I mean, he obviously he made impact on the nation, at the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. But he had a speech impediment. Yeah. You concentrate, you do the best you can, you prepare yourself, but when it comes down to it, it ain't about you.
I love that.
Okay, Bennett.
Bennett, you get the mic to Bennett.
So I feel like one person, when I think of that, the person who comes to mind is you, Dad.
Oh.
You. All right. I feel like every time I go to George Mason where you work, every time there's like just someone who says hi to you, because I feel like everyone knows you there. You have such a big impact on the community that it's just so known that you can't help just smile. That it's just like, even when you're gone, your impact will still be there. because a good person makes the community a better place. And that's what you do, Dad.
Okay, well, I did not pay my son to say that. I'm about to cry. Thank you, Bennett. I thought you was going to say Colin Kaepernick again. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Well, we're giving flowers where we are. I had to say that my leader was you, Dad, because same thing. I really felt like this, and this is totally honest, is I always grew up thinking that I could never be a leader like you. I saw you in a uniform, and I think I wrote about this. You read this before, right? And I got my grandfather, who's a black doctor, and I got all these people in my life, and I always looked up to people and put them on, and as I've gotten older, I realized that I am a leader, but I'll say the things I admired about leadership was not the things had nothing to do with your uniform. It was things that I observed, like that you take care of your mom. We'd go all the way down to Hampton, and that was service. And you would take your mom grocery shopping for like 3 hours, things like that. And then I noticed when I helped with Jeff, he wasn't doing well, selflessness. That's the kind of things you taught me. Or that you went back to school. Now I'm kind of doing it, right? Like you went back to school and got your master's. I'm going back to get my PhD, and that showed me that you can always learn. So I think the weird part is that you literally, like the old adage, you do become your parents. I don't say corny jokes like you, the knock jokes, but
you gave me the book.
Yeah, I gave you the book. but the point is, like, those are the things and I guess we're actually living it in real time. Like I watch what you did and I try to embody it. Hopefully Bennett and Miles watch what I do and they try to embody it. And that's really what it counts. That's all it is at the end of the day. Just watching and observing, and it has nothing. Obviously you want to have a job and have money, but I think the things is like you want to develop good men. Develop boys into becoming good men. Good. And that's not by the job. It's by just being your person and character and facing adversities, and not, like you said, like Thomas Jefferson or the other Franklin D. Roosevelt, not letting your challenges define you. These are all things that you just observe by action, not necessarily by doing, and not by the uniform. It doesn't have to be just a president to do that. It's not just a retired colonel to do that. It could be anyone that's making a good living for themselves.
And you hit on a key point. That's why you should always try to do your best and do what's right, because people don't do what you say, they do what they see. So what I'm saying is, it's easy to tell people to be to serve or to be selfless or take care of other people. It's easy to say that.
Or sacrifice. We're all making a big sacrifice, and then you're out there driving.
But people see, and they emulate what they see. So
they want to see the leaders. I think, we can go at this later. We'll do another part 2, but I think sometimes people want to see the leaders getting in dirty with them and doing the work with them. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, we're going to get something to eat. So Positive Philter listeners, this is the episode. Every episode is dedicated to the memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund. Additionally, if you're a member of the Mason Nation, please consider submit Paths for Patriots. This is one of many leadership episodes. Please, me and my dad and maybe Bennett will chop it up again. So if you have any questions about leadership, send them to us. Maybe we'll use that. And thank you so much for listening.
We're out.
Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.